Good evening, guys, and welcome to interview preparation session on 11th of March 2022, which is conducting by 360 TMG. And in today's class, today's session, we'll just see some of the questions regarding Python. And yes, we'll wait for 1 minute, and we'll just start the session. Okay, we'll just give some time to others to join the session. Okay, guys. Now, as we start the session, the first question which we are going across is what is Python? And list some popular applications of Python in this technology. Like what were the most preferred applications? Like while using Python, what were the applications we have been running in either in your systems or while doing any kind of projects and all. So if anyone knows the answer, please ping me in the chat box, and we'll discuss the answer within a minute. Yeah. Now, as we look into this, what is Python? Python, it is a general purpose, high level programming language, and it is mostly preferred language. Developers, programmers, and machine learning clients, artificial intelligence clients, and there are many other sources who have been going through this Python. Okay, this is so it's a widely used general purpose high level programming language, which is created by Guido van Rossum in 1991, and further development of this Python software have been foundation. Okay, and some of the applications we have been using in this Python are which we come in our day-to-day life, like Google, YouTube, Amazon, Facebook. There are many other applications which we have been going across, and we can go across those applications in our day-to-day lives. Along with it, it is also this Python is also used for like system subscriptions, web developments, game development, software developments, and for complex mathematical functions. So these are the, and not only this, it is very cheaper and it is free of cost. Okay, which means it is an open source, right, guys? So anybody can download this Python software, which is free from online itself, and it is free of cost. So that's why most of the people have been users, programmers have been preparing this Python languages. Okay, these were some of the importance of this Python. Okay, as we jump into the next question, what are the benefits of using Python language? So if anyone knows the answer, can ping me in the chat box, and we'll discuss the answer within a minute. Yeah. Now, as we look into the some of the benefits of Python languages, Python, it is an object-oriented language. It is an high-level language. It is a dynamically typed language. It is an open source, as I said before, uh, and it is portable and interactive. Uh, and it is also portable across this operating systems and all. So these are some of the benefits if we come across this Python. As we go into the next question, what are the differences between the lists and tuples? So if anyone knows the answer, please ping me in the chat box and we'll discuss the answer within a minute. Yeah. Now, as we look into the differences between the list and tuples, list list are mutable data types, whereas tuples are immutable data types. List consumes more area as compared to tuples. So tuples consumes very less area as compared to list. List is better for performing such operations such as insertion and deletion, whereas tuples data type is appropriate for accessing those elements. uh, it directly implicates of the time consuming. Okay, so as we come into these tuples, uh, it is comparatively somewhat it is somewhat faster as compared to list. Tuple is somewhat faster. So okay, these were the some of the differences between the list and tuples. So as we jump into the next question, how memory management done in Python? So if anyone knows the answer, can ping me in the chat box. Um, Features. Kiran Kumar, what are the features? Okay, so if anyone knows the answer, can ping me in the chat box and we'll discuss the answer within a minute. as we look here, the Python, in this Python, the memory management, which is used as a private space so it uses the private heap space to manage the memory in Python. Basically, all the objects, data structures are stored in this private heap space itself. If we go across Python, all these objects and data structures will be stored in this heap space itself. And even the programmer cannot access this private space. Even the programmer can't access those objects and data structures, as the interpreter takes care of this space. And this Python also has an inbuilt garbage collector. Okay, it directly has an inbuilt garbage character, which means if some amount of data is lost, so they will be stored in garbages, right? So the inbuilt garbage collector, which it directly recycles all the unused memories and frees up the memories and makes it available to the heap space. Okay, which means already some amount of space storage will be available in that heap space, and the useless data will be directly thrown into the garbage itself. Okay, so as we jump into the next question, is Python a compiled language or an interpreted language? So if anyone knows the answer, can ping me in the chat box and we'll discuss the answer within a minute. Yeah, Kiran Kumar and Pradeep. Yeah, you're right. You're right. Those answers you have been mentioned in the chat box are right. Okay. Yeah. So if anyone knows the answer regarding this, either the Python is a compiled language or an interpreted language, can share their thoughts or views in chat box and we'll discuss the answer within a minute. Yeah. So as we look into it, what is this Python? Whether it is a compiled language or an interpreted language. Actually, Python is an partially compiled language and partially interpreted language, which means the compilation part is done first, and the execute and it directly executes our code, and this will generate some bytecodes, right? And internally, these bytecodes get converted into PVM, which means Python Virtual Machine, according to the platform, which means whether it is a machine platform or operating system or all. According to this conversations, it will be transformed. And if you ask me, is this a compiled language or interpreted language? It is partially compiled and a partially interpreted programming language. Okay. Yeah. As we jump into the next question. What are decorators in Python? So if anyone knows the answer, can ping me in the chat box, and we'll discuss the answer within a minute. Yeah. So as we look into this, what are these decorators? These are very powerful and useful tools in Python, as there are specific changes that we make in Python syntaxes to alter some functions easily. So to alter those kind of functions, these decorators will be helpful for us to use them as it will be helpful for us to use as a very powerful tool. That's how this decorator will works on. So as we jump into the next question, yeah. So in the in the third question, we have been compared list and tuples, right? Which means there are mutable and immutable. What were the differences between this mutable and immutable? Which means what is a mutable, what is mutable data type, whereas what is an immutable data type? Okay. If anyone knows the answer, please ping me in the chat box, and we'll discuss the answer within a minute. As we look into this, what is the difference between mutable and immutable data types? So as we come across these mutable data types, mutable data types can be edited, which means it can be they can be changed at runtime. Examples are list, dictionaries, etc. Whereas you come to this immutable data types, these immutable data types cannot be edited. They can't be changed at the runtime process. And the examples are string and tuples. This is how the main difference between the lists and tuples. And Anil and Pradeep, you have been ping the right answers in the chat box. Okay, go on. So yeah, as we jump into the next question. So what is the difference between a set and a dictionary? So if anyone knows the answer, can ping me in the chat box, and we'll discuss the answer within a minute. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So as we look into this, what is the differences between these sets and dictionary? Sets. Set is an unordered collection of data type. Okay. So which is iterable, mutable, and has no duplicate values, which means any duplicate elements or values cannot be go across this set. Okay. So as we come across these dictionaries, dictionary in Python is an unordered collection. Both the sets and dictionaries are both of them are unordered collections of data tuples, dictionaries of data values, whereas the sets is of collection of data types. It is an unordered collection of data types is called set, and unordered collection of data values, which is called a dictionary. And these dictionaries they were being used to data values like a map. Okay, so this is how the difference between sets and dictionary goes on. So yeah, Kiran, you have been put it something in the chat box, right, regarding the previous question. Yeah, that's fine. That's right. So as we jump into the next question, what is a lambda function? So if anyone knows the answer, can ping me in the chat box, and we'll discuss the answer within a minute. So as we look into this, what is this lambda function? This lambda function is an anonymous function, and this function can have any number of parameters, but but it can have just only one statement. It can have any number n number of parameters, but it should have in a single statement. It should have only a single statement, one statement, which is called as this lambda function. And as we jump into the next question, what is pass in Python? So if anyone knows the answer, can ping me in the chat box, and we'll discuss the answer within a minute. Okay. Yeah. So if we look into the next question, what is pass in Python? So pass means it basically performs no operations, or in other words, it is a place in which the component statement where this should be some blankly left and nothing has to be written there. Which should be a blankly left, which means almost like a null value, which is called as this part statement in Python. Okay. So yeah, I think some of them kept their thoughts in the chat box. Pass is a null statement. Yes, Kiran, you're right. Conditional statement, when the condition is true, the loop is passed. Okay. Yeah. Pass. So, yes, Pradeep and Kiran Kumar, you are right. So as we look into the next question, what is the difference between X range and range function? So if anyone knows the answer, can ping me in the chat box, and we'll discuss the answer within a minute. So yeah, as we look into this, this range and x range are two functions which could be used to iterate a certain number of times for functions like loops in Python. So if we come across this range function, it returns a list of numbers which are created using the range functions. Okay, this is called a range function. And if you come across this x range, this function, it directly returns the object itself. It directly returns the object that can be used to display numbers only by using their looping statements. This is how this is the difference between them. So yeah, as we jump into the next question, I think this question is very small question. I think most of you people know regarding this. What are the differences between this hash and double hash in this Python? Which means how it is useful to you. So I think most of you people have an idea regarding this. So if anyone knows the answer, can ping me in the chat box and we'll discuss the answer within a minute. Yeah. So as we look into this, the difference between hash and double hash is, so when you're doing some mathematical operations like division, so if you divide some number, so you'll get suppose you'll get a reminder in float value, answer as a float value. Then if you use this symbol, you'll get an answer as a float value. Suppose if you use this modulus, then the float value can't be exist over there. It directly shows the integer value itself. This is how the difference between a slash and double slash. Okay, so as we jump into the next question, what is zip function? So if anyone knows the answer, please ping me in the chat box. We'll discuss the answer. Yeah, as we look into this zip function, this zip function, this function returns a zip objects which maps a similar index of multiple containers. Okay, it takes an iterable and converts into iterator, and it aggregates those elements based on their iterables passed, which means how were the iterables were passing. According to that aggregation, these elements will be based on that aggregation, and it returns an iterator based off the of tuples. The tuples of this iterator will be thrown back. So as we look into the next question, what are these iterators in Python? So if anyone knows the answer, can ping me in the chat box. Yeah. Now, as we look into this, what are iterators in Python? So in Python, iterators are used to iterate a group of elements which contains a list. Okay, so these iterators are collection of items, and it can be a collection of items, and the collection might be of list, tuples, dictionaries, anything it might be. So this Python iterator, it implements the method to iterate to store those elements which are coming from this list, tuples, and dictionaries and all. So in Python, we generally use loops to iterate over the collections. Like, okay, so this is how this iteration function goes on. So as we jump into the next question, what are the generators in Python? So if anyone knows the answer, can ping me in the chat box, and we'll discuss the answer within a minute. Yeah. Now, as we look into this, what are generators in Python? In Python, the generators is nothing. It's some of the way that specifies how to implement these iterators. As we seen before, what are iterators? It specifies how to implement those iterators, and it is a normal function which accept that the yields expression in the function should be of some of the expectations, and the some of the expectations, and it should be it does not implement any methods, and it directly reduces somewhat the overheads as well. So yeah, it is a kind of function which contains at least a yield statement to become a generator. So this it basically pauses the current execution by saving its state and then resumes the same when required. This is how the generator it basically runs. Okay, so as we jump into the next question, does Python supports multiple inheritance? Do anyone knows the answer? Please ping me in the chat box, and we'll discuss the answer. Yes. Now, as we look into this, Python, it does not support the multiple inheritance like Java. This multiple inheritance means that a class can be derived from more than one parent class, which is called as multiple inheritance. but this Python, it doesn't support, or this multiple inheritance concept will just support by Java itself. Okay, as we jump into the next question. Define encapsulation in Python. So if anyone knows the answer, please ping me in the chat box and we'll discuss the answer. Yeah. Now, as we look into this, encapsulation means binding the code and the data together. A Python class is an example for this encapsulation. Okay. So as we go into the next question, what are the libraries we use in Python? So if anyone knows the answer, give. Now I'm not saying each and every library. Try to mention some of the libraries we use in Python in the chat box. Okay. Yeah. Now, as we look into this, some of the libraries we use in Python are pandas, NumPy, matplotlib, sklearn. These were some of the libraries we use in Python. Okay. So as we jump into the next question, yeah, how do we call those libraries to use in a Python? Which means there are some libraries in the Python, right? So how do we call them? Okay. So if anyone knows the answer, please ping me in the chat box and we'll discuss the answer within a minute. Yeah. So as we look into this, how do we call those libraries to use in Python? So we'll call this function by using a keyword called import. Okay. By using this import, we'll just which means we are calling that library to use them in a particular file or a particular program. So as we jump into the next question, how does hash symbol used in Python? So if anyone knows the answer, can ping me in the chat box and we'll discuss the answer. Yeah. So as we look into this, how does this hash symbol used in Python? This hash is used as a comment, which means by initializing, by keeping this hash comment before starting any line, or after ending, before starting any line, it just takes this as a command, which means it doesn't run theoretically. That's how this hash symbol used in Python. Okay, so yeah, that's it for the day, guys. Hope this session is helpful to you, and we'll meet in the next session, guys. Thank you. Have a great day. Bye.